Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Shooters Gallery. My name is Chris Famularo, and joining me today is a wonderful director and a good friend of mine, Dan Petriw. Dan, how are you doing today?
Good, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. I mean, this is
Sure.
something we had talked about, in our time working together at SNY. I'm very thankful to have the opportunity to work with you and kind of pick your brain today about how you got started in the industry. So, if we can, let's just start right there. How did you know that you wanted to work in the world of media?
It's weird because when I think I kind of knew in high school, freshman year of high school, obviously, you're going to a new school, you're trying to fit in. I played sports, but I wanted to be a part of one of the clubs, and they started the audiovisual club at my school. And we started doing morning announcements. And that was the first chance I had the chance to produce a we actually had an in circuit television station. So every homeroom had a channel they would put on, and that we did our morning announcements that way. And that's kind of how I got started. I fell in love with it. It was cool because I did everything from hosting. It was the first time I was anchoring something. I was directing. I was producing, and I just fell in love with the whole thing. So I did that throughout high school, and then by the time I got to college, it's like, okay, this is something I really want to do.
Where did you end up going to school?
I went to a Quinnipiac University,
Very interesting. So, how
and
would you say? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I majored in communications.
Very cool. So, how would you say your transition was from college into the professional world of television?
Weird, because Quinnipiac was such a cutting edge school when in terms of communications, and it's especially its television broadcast television
Mhm.
department, and it still is.
Yeah.
You have kids coming out of Quinnipiac now that, and many other schools that already know how to TD Foley and cut in and direct. So when I came out, I learned everything nonlinear, how to edit, how to shoot, how to upload everything. We were just dabbling in high definition, and I get to my first channel that I was working on, and everything was tape to tape still.
Hmm.
I was editing on tape. I was playing highlights back on tape. I was fixing shows on tape, and I'm like, wait, we still do this? Why?
Yeah.
So I kind of had to relearn something that was almost already outdated. So that was a little weird. But if you know the basics of editing, and it's basically just taking what you learn nonlinear and just pulling it back. Here's what I'm doing tape to tape. It took a little bit of training, but I figured it out. But it was very weird. Like I was like, oh, I'm going to work on a cutting edge television station. Like, no, it's really, really, it's not caught up yet.
So, what would you say was the biggest challenge you faced early on in your career trying to get into the world of television?
I think that first, and like it hasn't changed much, but at first I had a part time job with hourly, no benefits. You can relate to this.
I sure
not,
can.
not much has changed. It's like it's hard to try and get that first full time staff job, and it took a while. I entered at News Channel 8 in New Haven, Connecticut, ABC affiliate, where I did absolutely everything there, from shooting to editing to producing. Um, I did anything they needed. I worked the assignment desk, answered phone calls from angry people. So you kind of just do everything. I got my share of pizzas from all the great New Haven pizza places, but you kind of just do everything, and I loved it. I just really fell in love with the whole environment. So I worked there as an editor part time, and I just set out resume after resume after resume after resume. And one thing we'll get into, television really is like a game of telephone. It's who you know,
Exactly.
and people will find you opportunities, especially your peers and your colleagues. That's why you never burn a bridge. You always, if you leave somewhere, you try and go out with dignity and grace, because you never know when someone else is going to be in a position to help you, or you'll be in a position to help someone else. So I finally got the opportunity to interview at ESPN, and I started there as like a 90-day temp. And then they hired me full time at a ridiculously low amount of money.
Yeah, I mean that seems to be the trend. Even now, you've kind of struggled to find your foot in, then you're like, oh wow, I finally caught a break, and then you realize, oh well, maybe it comes with a pay cut and
Right.
some restricted hours. But currently,
Oh,
Dan,
definitely restricted hours.
yeah, definitely
My first job, I had Tuesday, Wednesday off, and I worked 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. every night.
Oh yeah, the golden hour shift. That's exactly where you start.
Every holiday, every weekend.
Yeah, so you are currently a director now. I mean, you have directed at numerous places, and we're going to
I
get
have.
into it because you have,
Sure.
frankly, quite an illustrious career from my viewpoint. So when did you know you wanted to be a director?
I think it's when I started at ESPN. I started as a tape operator, where I was playing back highlights. I was fixing shows. I was still doing a little editing. And then as I got my feet wet there, they had me do it. They brought in EVS They needed EVS operators, basically doing real time playback, cutting highlights for games, and I got really good at that. And that's a hard job. Not everyone can do that.
Hmm.
I did it on the road a lot too. It gave me a chance to travel for the first time. I went to a few events where I was an EVS operator, and that gave me an opportunity and also opened some doors for me because I got to meet more people. I got to talk to more people, and ESPN had their associate director program. While you're an assistant director, they're also mentoring you and grooming you to become a director. So I just looked like a good opportunity for me, and after a few applications, I finally got it. So that was around 2004. I'm not sure if you were born yet, but
Uh,
but that's when I pretty much got started, and I fell in love with it. It's just something I really like to do, and I really got the hang of it, and I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, as someone personally who is also an aspiring director, hopefully in the world of television, I look up to, you especially, and some of our other colleagues who are also directors, and I love picking your guys' brain about, how you got to the place that you are, what are some of your favorite parts of being a director, some of your least favorite parts. I mean, I'd love to know what are some of your highlights of being a director so far. I mean, you've worked in so many different areas, and we've talked a little bit about work at work, but what are some of your highlights of being a director so far in your career?
I think, well, and I've had a lot of accomplishments. I've pretty much worked everywhere. I've done a lot of things. It's funny because some of the things I'm most proud of are not things that were critically acclaimed or things that won us awards, but they were just things that were very personal to me, and they were things that we really did just required a lot of teamwork. For example, I worked on the Outside the Lines show. I was the assistant director
Oh,
on
wow.
Outside the Lines when we broke the Joe Paterno case at Penn State.
Really?
So my entire life for 2 weeks, it was every day doing that, and we all came together. And it's like we had this story, and we knew what the ramifications were as soon as we brought it out. It was a woman for a local Pennsylvania paper was the one who broke the story, and we were one of the first to jump on it. And that was our whole life for 2 weeks. And I was obviously the story is repulsive, and but I was so proud of the work we did for those 2 weeks, and I was really proud of the shows we put on the air. It was almost like all life consuming for 2 weeks. So I was extremely proud of that the work we did for that, and that was a great team effort. I was very proud of the work we did a few years ago at SNY. We did the Rocket League Northeast Championship. It was the first time I'd ever done esports. I had no idea what to expect. I mean, I like video games, but I never pictured people playing video games on TV or streaming would be a thing. And I had every camera in the studio. I had every camera and every studio. I had all the resources that we had, and it was like an 8-hour event. And after I did that, I was like, okay, I can direct anything now. If I can
Hmm.
direct this, I really, it gave me the confidence to really move forward and just like, okay, you can tackle anything now. And then most recently, I directed my first election night for Yahoo News, and I thought that was something that went really well. I did the conventions as well. I never dabbled my foot into politics when it came to that, but it was really cool. Even though when we signed off that night, we didn't know, obviously didn't have a winner,
Yeah.
but it was cool doing that and having that experience as well. But I would have to say that the thing I'm most proud of was the Rocket League, because it was something so new for us, and we had never ever, we never, who would have thought we'd be doing video games on TV. And after we were done, everybody was ecstatic, and it was just a really great 2 days.
Yeah, I mean that sounds incredible, and uh, I mean frankly, I love playing I love playing Rocket League, and I love hearing what everybody that we work with have what they have to say about working on that event. So you kind of talked about it recently. What are you doing now? I mean, frankly, we're in this very weird and uncomfortable time in everybody's lives for career goals and stuff like that because of COVID and the pandemic. But what are you doing now in your career and trying to continue? Because you're someone who is always striving forward and trying to achieve the next level. What are you doing right now?
Well, if at first, when the pandemic first hit, I lost a ton of work. I
Hmm.
was directing games for NBA International, and those went away. Obviously, I was directing at SNY, and that went away for a while. So at first, I was like trying not to panic. I was trying not to panic, but Yahoo Finance is another place I direct, and they were able to create a system where we could direct from home and direct remotely. So that's something I've been doing since the pandemic started. And I don't even know if they're ever going to return back to a studio because they've done such a nice job setting this up. And look, if you told me 15 years ago that I'd be able to direct from a keyboard in my bed, I would have laughed at you.
Hmm.
But now the industry's come so far, and I don't know what that means for job security moving forward. But the fact that we were able to adapt to a pandemic and also I really have to tip my cap to Yahoo because so many places use this opportunity and as the pandemic as an excuse to cut back and lay people off and just it was like, oh, it's the pandemic, we're not making enough money, let's gut our staff a little and let's get rid of let's see how we can trim it and keep our stock prices up. We were in meetings and our bosses at Yahoo's like, we don't care what it costs, make it happen. We need to keep people safe. We don't want to lose. We don't want people to lose any jobs. Now, I wasn't working as much at first as I was when I was full time in studio, but no one was laid off, no one lost their jobs, and now we're really in a good rhythm. To the point where I don't think they're going to go back to the studio. If you ask me, they are saving so much money. They have 15 floors that are rented out in Astor Place, and all they need is one room to put all their equipment in now. So, I mean, logistically, it makes sense for them never to go back in the studio, just cost wise.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect transition into my next question. How do you feel that the pandemic and COVID have affected the television landscape? I mean, this is something we have talked about a bunch, and it's definitely worrisome. But what's your take on it?
It's really changed it. Like I said, it gave a lot of these companies that unfortunately only care about their stockholders an excuse to trim the fat. I
Yeah.
mean, look what happened at Disney, look what happened at Universal, look what happened at Comcast. I mean, it's just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of jobs, and it always seems like it always like look, it does affect on-air people, it does affect anchors, but that's a little different because they have contracts. So it's not like they're staff employees, they're contractual employees. And the same thing with producers. It always seems like, yeah, you might lose a producer here and there, and I know some good friends that lost jobs from that aspect. But it always seems like it guts the technical crew.
Yeah.
Like every time there is a layoff, anytime there is a reorganization, it always seems to strain the technical crew, and they just see how much can we gut there to save money. Like, look, right now, all I can say is you have to be adaptable. You have to be willing to learn new technology. You have to be willing to learn automated systems because this is where we are. It's the future. I don't necessarily love it all, but if you want to stay working, you have to adapt.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, this is something that everybody, I think, even in every field outside of the media aspect, everybody has had to learn how to adapt and grow and change and, keep an open mind, especially. But you kind of touched on something a little bit talking about, the ability to adapt. And it seemed like that's what you were best at when you were younger and coming up in the television industry. Is something you would recommend to younger people now, some people who might be in college or in their first year in the
Sure.
field? What is something you would recommend to those people?
Learn everything. If you find a field, make yourself as versatile as possible. And I think you've done a good job with that. Like
Well, thank you.
you've done many positions at SNY already. Like, just make yourself as versatile. It's almost like look, we like baseball, right? If you there really is, you have your utility player, but now you have now you have your regular players, like someone like a DJ LeMahieu. Yeah, he can play second base, he can play shortstop, he can play third, he can play first, he can DH. Make yourself as versatile as possible, right? So you want to do that in the field of media too. Learn cameras, learn robotics, learn video shading, learn how to do teleprompter, anything that you learn how to do graphics, learn how to be an associate producer, learn how to cut a highlight, learn how to edit, anything that you can do to make yourself more valuable. So if you're still in school right now and you have the opportunity to learn any of that stuff, please grab the reins and make yourself as versatile as possible. Take advantage of your internship because if you get into places are still doing internships, but you get into an internship right now, learn as many things possible. You might be a production assistant. Okay. So they're going to teach you how to write highlights. They're going to teach you how to edit. But when you have a downtime, go sit with the director,
Mhm.
go sit with the technical director, learn the difference between the two, learn how it works, learn how operations work, learn how our tech managers route a show, learn how the satellites come in, learn how the Skypes come in. Just make yourself because you might actually like one of those things more than what you're actually interning for as well, but make yourself as versatile and valuable as possible. And that's what I did when I first started. I learned how to do graphics, I learned how to do camera, I learned how to do tape. Then I found a niche doing EVS and cutting highlights that way, real time during games, and doing live replay for events too, which is something that's always there as well. So I tried to make myself as versatile as possible. And even though the media world was much bigger back then, and it's definitely shrunk, there are still nuances there too. But also, if you have an idea that you think is really good, start it on your own. Like what you're doing, Chris. You're doing your own show, right? I'm doing my own show every Friday. I do a web show every Friday on YouTube called Advanced Shouting with a couple of my friends, and we had talked for years because we do a podcast as well, and we talked for years. It's like, hey, let's do a web show. Let's because I think it'd be a lot of fun. Just three of us get along really well. And during the pandemic, it's like, well, we have a lot of downtime right now. Now's the best time as ever to launch it. And so we did, and it's going well. So make yourself as versatile for the things that you want to do professionally, but make yourself as versatile for the things you like as well. Because like now I can produce shows. I have complete confidence that I can produce shows. I can host shows. I can interview people. I have no problem doing any of that stuff. And when you come out of college, you're like your mind's like, okay, I just need to get a job. I just need to get a job. It might not be what I want. But if you make yourself as versatile possible, eventually you'll get funneled down the road. It's almost like this is the best analogy I can give. You get out of college, it's almost like getting out of a tunnel, right? And you got 5 lanes, and those 5 lanes have to get that merged back into one lane. So at some point, you will find that lane that will get you there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you just said there. And the one thing I totally agree, especially as someone who graduated college within the last 2 years, is when you're in college, they're like, all right, you got to learn, or you have to specialize in something. Like you have to be good at this. I was always in the process of like, you have to be really good at being a camera operator, or you have to really be good at editing, or you have to really be good at producing. And like, those are the lanes that you kind of learn. And then when you get out of college or you're interning and you're talking to professionals who are in the field, they're always like, well, it's good that you're good at that, but like I need someone who is willing and able to learn all of these things. And it's
Right.
exactly what you said. And I think that's something that colleges are kind of failing to tell students is
Yep.
be so close-minded in like, okay, if I'm going to try and get in this field, I need to be good at this to prove that I'm good at something. It should be
Hmm.
the mindset of you don't have to be phenomenal at something, just be
Right.
phenomenal at learning those things. And then
Yes.
from
And
there,
yes.
and
Yes.
like you said, and it's clearly proven because you are a director now, you said, all right, I'll learn all this stuff. And then you got to a point like, I'm good at this, and these people I'm working with know I'm good at it. So I'll
Right.
continue from there. And it's worked out phenomenally with you. And I mean, I'm hoping to follow the same track. I'm very clearly still very early on in my career path, but I have had the opportunity to work with people like you and some of our other friends like Kerry and Mike Delavan and Rachel Wynn. I mean, Mike Tully, some other people I'm hoping to have on this show. And I think honestly, just for I'm hoping some younger people will be watching this and think you don't need to be phenomenal at one thing to get a job. You just need to be phenomenal at learning things and be open to trying new things.
What's great is this what you've created here is almost like a TED talk for the media industry. Maybe a tech talk. I don't know.
I love it. I
There you
love it.
go. But that's great because there's not much out there where you can just get people in it. And I think if I was able to watch this when I was a sophomore in college, I think it would be completely invaluable just knowing what to expect when you get out. Because like I said, it was hard 20 years ago when I got out of college in 2000. I'm dating myself, but that's okay. Um, I can only imagine now. We all know how hard it is to get a job out of college. This isn't an industry that just hands you a job starting at $70,000 a year or anything like that. You might never even get to that point. You don't do this to get rich.
Hmm.
You don't do this because you're going to get a lot of money. You do this because it's kind of in your blood, and it's been almost like predestined to you. I know that sounds weird, but either you are or you aren't.
Hmm.
And it's like almost like it's like a passion. It's an adrenaline rush. Maybe it's a control thing. I don't know. It's a lot of good and it's a lot of bad, all kind of rounded into one. But I can't imagine graduating school now in the midst of a pandemic and trying to find a job. Period. Let
Yeah.
alone in a field like this that it is shrinking and really evolving right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, like how you said, it's almost drawn to you in the sense of you get that satisfaction of, I mean, I haven't felt it on your level with creating something like or working on something like Outside the Lines and breaking that kind of a story, but it's when you finish a good show or even finish something like this that we personally work on, like I'm sure you do with Advanced Chatting. When you finish a show, there's this gratification within yourself that is so or satisfaction that
Yeah.
is unmatched with anything else that or any other job that I have worked in, and I'm sure the same is for you. But I do kind of want to talk about your show and some of the other shows that you've worked in outside of the television world because you've worked on some really interesting things. Let's talk a little bit about advanced shouting and what you've been working on.
Yeah, it was myself, my good friend Noel Fogelman, who I've worked in the industry with for about 20 years as well. Um, and we originally started. We still do it for now. It's called the Isles Buzz podcast. That's on Spotify, Apple, and it's just a straight podcast covering the New York Islanders. We both are passionate fans, and it's something that we started, and it spun into more with advanced shouting. We brought along our friend actor Michael Vartan. He's been on the show Alias, movies like Never Been Kissed. Um, so he has a long career of acting, but he's also very well connected in the hockey world because he's a hockey super fan.
Hmm.
We would have him on because he's a huge Kings fan, and he was just great. I mean, we would go out and we would get national media members on our show, beat writers to cover teams. I remember we had a Bruins guest on one time, and the first thing he said is like, "Hey, don't ask me that. Don't ask me that. I haven't been following that lately." And it's like, dude, that's your job to know this stuff, or at least fake. Like, look, we don't all know the answers to everything, but if you're good at this, you're good at bullshitting your way through, even when you don't know the answer.
Yeah.
So, and then we would have Michael on, and Michael would be like, "Yeah, you can ask me anything. I watch every game every day. If not, I watch the highlights." So, the pandemic hit, and we had been talking about this for a while, I said, "Hey, let's do a show, and so let's launch something." So now we're on Fridays at 5:30. Normally, the date might change again based on my new work schedule, but we come on for an hour, and it's hockey centric. We usually lead with hockey, and then we talk about whatever else is going on in the sports world. We've had some great guests already. I got some more great ones lined up. So it's just fun for us to be ourselves. It's very laid back. It's almost like we created like a bunch of friends, sitting around the water cooler or sitting at the bar when we used to be able to go to bars and just drinking and talking about sports, completely unfiltered, completely unedited, just like you would talk off camera in real life. And so far, we have found a niche, and it is going really well. And it doesn't really feel like work because it's really something we just love to do, and we're having so much fun. It's just like three guys getting together on a Zoom call and just talking about sports for an hour, being joined by a couple of guests, and we'll go about our day. But it's something that we really, really are enjoying doing, and look forward to keep growing it as much as I don't like. Look, will we ever get rich off this? No. Will we ever become super popular on this? I mean, we have 50 subscribers on YouTube. So hey, subscribe to the channel if you're watching Advanced Shouting. Will we ever be super famous to make money off of it? Probably not. But is it something we love to do, and we're just having a good time? And okay, so we only have 50 followers, but those people really like us. So I find that extremely rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, myself and my friend and partner Tommy with this channel, we're in the exact same boat. I think we have like 54 subscribers at the time of this recording, and it's just as you said, you don't get into the television industry to make a lot of money. You do it
Right.
for the passion, and you do something like this for the passion. And I think, frankly, this is something, at least for me, and this is from my experience, it's something that really helps me with senses of like anxiety or not hopelessness because that sounds a little bleak, but like when you have days where you just feel like you don't have a passion or a drive, like it's the stuff like this that then kind of wrangles you back in and feel like, okay, well, at least if I can do this and it makes me happy at the end of it, then clearly I'm doing something right. So I'm assuming that
Right.
you
Yeah.
have the same
Right.
feeling.
Yeah, after an episode of Van Shouting, I'm never angry. I'm always in a good mood, and that can't be said. And like, look, I love directing and stuff, but there are times after a show I'm a little pissed off. Let's be honest. Do you know this? Actually, yes, you do know this. We could talk
I
about yesterday's Jets post game.
Hey,
But
we absolutely could. I'm more than open to talking about
no,
that.
no, no, that's okay. But I was not thrilled. But at the same time, another thing too is if you work in this business, you have to have either like I guess a hockey goalie or a soccer goalie. You need to have a goalie mentality. Okay, because I used to work with this guy and he was really good, but if he made one mistake, he was just done for the rest of the show. And it's like I said to him one time because he made a mistake like 3 minutes into the show. It's like, all right, you made a mistake. It's 1-0 them. We still have 2 hours of programming.
Yeah.
I need you for those 2 hours. So you made a mistake. We'll deal with it at the end of the show. But I need you for the next hour and 57 minutes. And I guarantee you, those next hour and 57 minutes are great. No one's going to care about what happened 3 minutes in. So you gave up one goal. All right, so we're going to win 5-1 instead. So you have to let it go, and you have to just stay in the present. That's the biggest thing I could tell anyone who's working in television. You want to plan ahead. You want to learn from your mistakes. So you have to worry about the future, and you have to worry about the past. But at the same time, you have to stay in the present. And if you stay in the present about what's happening right now, you usually don't lose it. You stay calm. You stay in control. Like, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen right now? So and so, like, I don't know, we lose a satellite shot or something like that. Okay, what happens if that happens? Well, I go to commercial break and we figure it out. Or if this, what you always have, if you stay in the present, usually you can troubleshoot your way out. And usually going to commercial is your way to just reset everything and calm everybody down. Now, if there are times when the commercials won't run, that's a whole different story because I've had that happen too. When the commercials are
Yeah.
locked up and they won't run. So if you can get through those situations, you can get through most mundane things that happen. You just have to stay in the present, because if you stay in the present, it lets you plan ahead. It lets you get into the future. Okay, I need to do this and this coming up, but we're here right now. Okay, well, if I do that, remember one time you reflect on other shows you did. Well, that didn't work that last time, so let's alter that a little bit. Usually, if you just worry about what's in front of you, you'll be fine. A mentor of mine once said, "You cannot work on television with your head down. Everything is happening right here. You have to just make sure you're always actually watching the show, because sometimes you get lost in your own job functions. You want to always be watching the show and always be listening to the show. And if you're doing that, you can react, because you don't want the worst thing to be is proactive, where you're trying to catch up to everything. You always want to be out in front of something.
Hmm.
Some places do that really good, and some places do that horribly.
Yeah, I think even in our own experiences and how we were talking about, you get into this job for the passion of it. That means you're working with passionate people, and the best
Right.
people in this industry. If they're passionate, they clearly want to put on the best product. I know that's for my experience. That's very clearly for your experience. That's for a lot of people we have worked with. And in instances when something goes wrong, this is something I had to learn, not at SNY, but kind of in college, and then sometimes at SNY, and we won't reflect on it. But when things do go wrong, they go wrong in the control room. You don't continue that anger outside of the control room
Right.
unless it is like a world-ending problem and it reaches far beyond the show or the 30 minutes or
Or we
hour
name
of
the mistake
television,
after you.
or you name them.
If you
Yes.
screw up so bad that they name the mistake after you, that's like almost like a badge of honor. I've been there.
Yeah. I mean, trust me, I'm sure there are plenty of people who have had many a mistakes named after them. I mean, we can name at least two for
Hmm.
SNY, but we're not going to do that here. But it's the idea that just as much as you say live in the present, that means you can't carry those mistakes and those anger for those mistakes outside of the control room, because in the end of the day, you're still coworkers. It's not like we're enemies at the end of the
No.
day. Everyone's a team. You're trying to work together to put on the best product on screen, and it happens every single day. And just as the same thing, when you make a successful show, you want to sing your praises afterwards. It's this, not to be overtly positive or super optimistic, but when you do something good, express that you've done something good. When you do something bad, find the good in what has happened. I think that
Right.
kind of alludes to the best success that you can have with your coworkers and with your crew.
Yeah, I think too is you have to like just keep your head about yourself too, because at the end of the day, we're just making television. We're not curing cancer. We're not first responders. We're not on the front lines fighting a pandemic. We're just putting a show on about the Mets. I mean, come on. Or we're
Yeah.
doing a show about the Jets and they suck. All right. So no one's probably watching anyway. So it's like just try and keep perspective, I think is the best. Just
Hmm.
no, just keep things in perspective. Yes, it's not going to be perfect. And it took time for me to learn this. I used to take mistakes home with me. You can't do that anymore. It's not worth it, because you have
Hmm.
another show to do sometimes that day. Sometimes you're doing multiple shows a day. So if your first one's terrible, it can affect your second show, or even your third show, or however long you're going to be there for. So you just have to be in perspective, and I've learned great things from great people over the years. And like the hardest thing too is know you have to know your crew. You have to know what they're good at, and you also have to know what they're not good at. And usually every crew has someone that might be your weakest link, someone who is just not good at something, and that's what they're doing. They're with you today, so you might have to give them a little more attention, which can be a pain in the ass at times. But if you want your show to be good, you have to do that. And also you also have to. We work with people who are completely unmotivated and completely just show up and cash a check, and they don't give two shits. And those are the hardest people to work with. And those are
Yeah.
the people I usually yell at,
The
because
unpassionate people.
I am never going to yell at someone for trying. I'm never going to yell at someone for trying and making mistakes because you're putting that effort in. Now, look, if you make the same mistake 7 nights in a row, yeah, I might get pissed. But if you're out there working your ass off and you make a mistake, look, I understand it. Sometimes you have to make that mistake to learn something from it to make you better at your job. And I know everybody's trying their best. So it's when you dealing with the people who don't who don't care at all. Those are the people maybe I might take my angst out on at times. So, but all in all, another thing too is, and this is probably one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give to anyone getting into the industry. We're all on headsets. We're all talking to each other. Sometimes there might be as many 30, 40 people listening, maybe even more. Never embarrass someone over the headset.
Yeah.
If you have a problem with their work, pull them aside, talk to them, socially distanced, 6 feet apart, but talk to them after the show face to face. That goes so much longer. I would say your crew will respect you. Everybody will respect you. If you call someone out and embarrass them over the headset, you can lose trust in people, and they're not going to fight for you, and they're not going to help you when you make mistakes, because we all make mistakes, and we also all pick each other up. I call wrong shit all the time, but you realize it's wrong, and you're like, hey, you mean 3 instead of 1? Yes, that. So never embarrass someone over a headset. If you have a problem with someone's work, and I'm also not big on telling their bosses either. If you have a problem with someone's work, always address it with them first. If it becomes a trend, then you bring it up with their boss. But always, I'm in that aspect, I'm old school. Face-to-face, personal conversations go a lot longer. They do. They just go farther in this industry.
Yeah, and I think it kind of gives this feeling that you're not wishing for people to not succeed. No matter
Right.
how bad someone is at a position, or if they're learning a position,
Right.
or if they're doing something for the first time, you never want them to fail, because
Right.
just as you said, everything is in television and a crew side is based on, everyone is the weak. You need to rely on the weakest link, and you're not going to want your weakest link to break. So I highly agree with your feeling of, if something happens in the show or you have a problem with someone, it's not everyone's business unless it affects everyone.
Exactly.
And we've seen that happen, and it usually gets dealt with in the most proper manner.
Mm-hmm.
But in the most part, I think, honestly, television is such a supportive career field, and I feel like the best days you have at TV are when everyone is, helping each other out and looking out for one another, and, singing each other's praises. And we've had days where, pre-COVID at SNY, when we had days of, full days of programming, and we made it through the day, and there were maybe, no mistakes or one mistake, and just that feeling of everybody walking out of the control room together or meeting up by the elevators and saying like, hey man, we had a really good day of TV.
Yeah.
I can't ever say I've had another feeling like that.
And even like, okay, you might have a day where there might be 1 or 2 mistakes over a course of 8 hours, or a couple, but it's still, the show is still good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we hit a freeze, or maybe there was a bad time on something, but that's why erasers have pencils have erasers. You fix it, no big deal. Okay, that's a fix, but that doesn't take away from how good the show was. And there are also days where you'll have no mistakes, but the show sucked.
Yeah.
The shows weren't great. Okay, the content wasn't great. The anchors had low energy. Maybe I was a little late cutting a conversation where it's not wrong, but it's not great. And so it's weird. So some days, like, there'll be absolutely nothing wrong with the show. You'll be like, well, that wasn't very good. But once again, you wipe the slate clean, because you know what? You got 3 more shows tomorrow.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So let's just kind of pivot here, and I want to get to know, what are some of your goals down the line, Dan? I know you have probably many goals ahead of you, both professionally and personally. What are some things that you're striving for, hopefully in the next couple of years in your timeline?
Well, I want to expand advanced shouting and make that go as far as I can. I really do enjoy work that show. I think it's something different. I don't think it's something that you see every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely unfiltered. We don't care who we piss off. I think it's really a form of honest journalism that you don't really see that much anymore, because a lot of these sports networks are so much in bed with the rights holders. Like, they're so much in bed with the sports that they cover that they're so scared to call anybody out. And I don't care. And we just don't care. We're trying to give an honest perspective what's going on. Now, look, if a league is doing something great, we tell you they're doing something great. But it works both ways. Everything is not always like when you watch, like, for example, the NFL draft, like the first run. Oh, he's going to be great. This guy's going to be great. No, they're not all going to pan out. No, they're not. you know, 32 guys, not all of them are going to be Pro Bowl Hall of Famers. There
Hmm.
are going to be misses. Not everything's going to be sunshine and you know, daffodils. Um, so I definitely want to expand that as far as I can because I really think there's something good there. Whether it gets mainstream, whether we make money off of it and it becomes profitable, I have no idea. But I definitely want to take that as far as I can take it. I want to continue directing at a high level of what I'm doing now, and just keep expanding my knowledge there and expanding my knowledge with automation because I really, unfortunate, that's the unfortunate future of television as everything is getting automated. So I want to learn that as much as possible. And I just want to do good. I just want to go to work and make good television. That's always been my goal. I don't do it for bosses to a fault. I don't promote myself. I don't pump my own tires. Um, I do it for the viewer at home. I just want to go to work and I want you to watch my show and be entertained.
Hmm.
That's all I want. I also want to be paid nicely for it, but I just want to continue to make good television and grow as much I can as a director and grow as much as I can as a producer and a host.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I have after you linked me to Advanced Shouting, I watched one of the I think the most recent episode, which was probably 2 weeks ago for
Yeah,
me
we
for
were
the
off for
most recent one.
Thanksgiving. Yeah, so 2 weeks ago.
So
Yep.
2 weeks ago, and what I love about it is because it's very clearly a fans podcast for the fans. You know, you're not like one of those kind of fluffy, like very clearly paid for by a network podcast made for the fans with some
Right.
insider insight. Like you guys are very clearly fans who just love talking about hockey and you love BSing with each other. I
Right.
love conversation style podcasts. I think you guys are hilarious. I mean, I have felt that you are hilarious since I've pretty much met you. But
Well, thank you,
alongside
sir.
even in advanced shouting, your personality, melds perfectly with your cohorts. And I also love the fact that you guys do your shows live on YouTube and then it
Hmm.
just perfectly goes straight up. That's something I hope to meld into this channel as well. I just think you were someone who I always when I first started in the industry, you always seemed to be someone who you had your personality, but you also had your feet underneath you, and you knew what you were talking about, and you knew where you wanted to go. And it seems like that still has continued for you here. So, just before we kind of wrap up, I feel like this conversation has been awesome. I've been able to learn so much more than I already knew about you. Just some other stuff you've worked on. You stated you worked on ESPN. I know that you worked on the X Games in
Yep.
for the Winter X Games. You've also covered New York sports and election coverage. What are some of your favorite memories from any of those places? It can be during TV. It could be the memories you made, either on location or something like that. What are some of your favorite memories from those times?
Ah, the X Games were amazing. Being in front of Sean White at McDonald's before at the X Games, it's hard to describe how cool that was and how once again a different experience from what you're used to. But if you go there with kind of like just wide eyes and soak everything in, it was just a really cool experience. Um, that also, when I was working on that, the industry was much different, and ESPN was just raking in dough, and they spent there. You know, we were staying in like ski villas, and I had a hot tub in my room,
Oh
and
man.
we weren't working a ton. We were getting paid for 10-hour days. We were only doing like 4 hours of programming. Where our broadcast center was in a hotel next to a bar. It's just like little things like that.
Hmm.
It was just and everybody back in Bristol was so consumed with the Super Bowl, no one was really paying attention to us. So we were just making TV and having fun, and that was a great experience. I enjoyed working on the few worlds. I worked on 3 World Series. While those were difficult, they were fun. MLB All Star Game was also fun. Um, let's see, trying to think of where else I've been on the road. I did a couple of Monday Night Football games. When Sports Center did 50 states in 50 days, I was a part of that.
Oh wow.
Actually doing the first one of those in Massachusetts. That was fun because it just takes you to places you don't expect. Like I'm on top of the Green Monster watching the Yankees and Red Sox play, and this is like, okay, this is pretty cool.
Oh wow.
So it really you get a ton of experience and just a ton of moments. My advanced shouting partner Noel, when we were in Detroit for the All Star game, I think 2004 or 2003. I'm not sure. He got too drunk the night before, and we were staying outside the city, and it was July, so it was really hot. And so we're taking this shuttle in, the shuttle suspension's off. So we're going through all these potholes, and the air conditioning wasn't working.
Oh
So
man.
just think about having about like 9 mixed drinks the night before, and then being in like a 90-degree shuttle that's hitting every pothole. And he gets out of the shuttle when we get to Comerica, and he just like he's not going to make it. He throws up on the Detroit Tigers Walk of Fame. Like Hollywood Walk of Fame. All their retired players have a star. They have a Walk of Fame. So he threw up right on Sweet Lou Whitaker. So that's always been a joke to this day. So you get stories like that. When you work this long and you do so many things, you would just end up with weird nights like that. There was a night where I was at a Ruby Tuesdays with Ray Bork, Hall of Fame hockey player, and there was a time I was in New Haven eating pizza with like just the guys we worked with, athletes we worked with and stuff. Because they're like, hey, what are you doing? Because we had like a night off. I'm like, oh, I'm going down to New Haven and have some beer and pizza. Like, oh, can we come? I'm like, yes, of course you can come. So, so you never know where it's going to take you, like golf tournaments and things. There's definitely a camaraderie that develops, and I would have to say, working on the X Games was one of the coolest moments, because not only were you working with television people, I was working with like the Disney Corps of Engineers that they use to work on their theme parks and work on their movies, and they were in charge of like lighting and building the courses and everything like that. And it's like when they're like, okay, we need to light the half pipe. All right, cool. What do you have in mind? I'm like, well, you just worked on Pirates of the Caribbean, and you just lit all of the new Disney World. So what do you have in mind? I was thinking about doing all of this. I'm like, we're on the same page, because that's what I thought too. And so I come back like 4 hours later, the guy flips the switch and the whole half pipe turns up, and there's like lights and trees. The guy cut holes into the half pipe, put lights in there, buried them, and then took water and froze over it, and then turned the light on. So the light was almost going through. He also put different colors of ice over it, so it would come out with like a reflected color of red or blue or orange outside of the pipe, and it had the ice reflective kind of look coming out of it.
Holy cow.
He's like, is that okay? And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. It's crazy. It's not something you ever think of, but you rely on the people that know what they're doing, and you just kind of go with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible.
I would never have thought of doing that ever, but that's what they do. That's why they're so good at their jobs. That's another thing too. Identify who's good at their jobs, trust them, and rely on them, because they'll do the same thing too.
Yeah, it's all a collaborative effort. Let people, if everybody succeeds in their own little niche, then you'll have a perfect show on your hands.
Yep.
All right. Well, Dan, I think frankly this has been incredible. I'm so glad that I had you come on, and I hope you can come on more.
Of course.
Before you go, please promote whatever you want. Promote Facebook, social, Twitter, and Instagram, advanced shouting, anything. Go for it.
Well, please subscribe. Please subscribe to our channel, Advanced Shouting on YouTube. You can check me out on Twitter at DanDanNoodles78. And also go onto Twitter and follow the Advanced Shouting page too. We have clips and interviews and all kind of stuff, content up there. So yeah, please check that out. It would be greatly beneficial to us. We appreciate every subscriber we get. So please reach out. Check out a show too, because if you like the show, I feel like you'll subscribe. So go watch a show. It's on YouTube or Twitch or Facebook, and Advanced Shouting, and I think you'll have a good time. I think you'll enjoy it.
I guarantee you will, because I already have. I've subscribed. I have followed. It's a good time, and I think it's worth everybody else's time. Dan, thank you so much for coming on. This was just a pleasure. I hope it was a good time for you as well. I hope that you can come on in the future. Maybe we can do like a little group effort with some of our other colleagues and talk about just a cumulative effort altogether. Thank you so much. Everyone, please subscribe to One Shot Entertainment. Dan, thank you so much, and we will see you guys in the next one. Have a great day.